Cog works. I sure hope it does. Fresh and Buds now.
Fresh and
All right, folks, welcome back to yet another episode of Fresh and Buds. I'm your host, Tommy Fresh, and you are all my buds. And it is episode 200, if you can believe it. And we are joined once again by Bryan Gottlieb. Thank you for coming on. How you doing, my friend? You just had a crazy weekend.
I did have a crazy weekend, and I will tell you that typically when I go to these things, and I've tried to instill this in my fellow casters as an old veteran of the game, I go to these things, I am very cautious with my sleep schedule. I am cautious with my voice. I make sure I'm not like out in loud places and not talking too much when I'm not casting, just because casting is really tough. It takes a lot out of you. So that's always a priority for me, getting a lot of sleep. And, I've taught Ponkage and Ellie and Sam that same approach. And then this weekend, I encouraged them all to stay up late playing blackjack with me in the casino and threw all of that completely out the window. But we had a really good time. So worth it.
Well, listen, I mean, you all did excellent in the booth, and there were a lot of exciting games to be had, and it was a lot of fun to watch as somebody not there watching the streams, and I can speak for a lot of people out there. They had a lot of fun, and it was really interesting as well. Very cool to see.
Highest peak viewership ever, by the way, for a Flesh and Blood stream, clearing Pro Tour London, and shout outs to the entire team, everyone that has anything to do with our cast, because we have been working very hard. It's been a multi-year thing, basically since I started working on this stuff, but a goal to have the best possible stream we can. And we know we will never have the dollars to mess with the Pokemons and the magic of the world. I shouldn't say never. Right now, we don't have the dollars to kind of keep up with their budget, but we're going to get the most dollar for dollar we possibly can. And man, I think we're real close to what they put on, and in some instances as good, maybe some better, and we're doing it on a fraction of the budget. So I'm so proud of folks like Savage Feats and Sam, who's now really leading the production side of things, and then all the casters who we worked with. It's just, I hope it's obvious to everyone how much our game has leveled up around our casting endeavors.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. I mean, I remember watching some of the first streams, and they were good for the time. But looking back, You're like, wow, we've come quite
we
away.
posted those Pro Tour finals. It was every Pro Tour final leading into Worlds this year, and I couldn't go back and watch a lot of them. I was like, wow, this is what we used to put out. So it's pretty dramatic how far we've come.
Yeah, it's important because a random person just hopping into the stream and kind of looking at that game, you got to be able to read the cards first of all, that or at least see them, and having those pretty cool overlays, and these other games, they have great stuff too, but do you need the huge booth studio thing? I don't know. I think it's just as entertaining to watch the games on the screen. So it's pretty awesome, and to see it happen with Majin Bay on Verdance was pretty incredible. Love Majin, such a good dude, and really puts in the work and is clearly a master, and that must be really exciting for you and everybody to just see a true master go and just do the hard thing. I mean, that top 8 was not easy for him.
Yeah, it was. I mean, even more so, it's very easy to call him a master because he is. He is a brilliant card game player. But he also worked really hard at his craft, and he worked hard at learning all aspects of Flesh and Blood, not just how to play Wizards, but understood Limited really, really well, and has a bit more range than just Wizard, even if he doesn't choose to show it off all that often, but absolutely can do so many things in the game now, and he's just a great player and a completely deserving national champion.
Yeah, I mean, last time I had him on, I kind of scolded him for like making these wizards look so good because then all the wizards show up at locals, and I'm like, I didn't pack my AB. Come
That
on.
is the curse. That is the curse.
But it was really exciting, and I mean, it was the opening weekend for High Seas, and it was a diverse meta, and like that must have felt good for you, being on the development and design side of things. Was it what you expected? Is this something, obviously you hope for a really diverse meta, but were you excited to see how it shaped out?
I was really pleased with the shape of things, and I almost I only have broad expectations at this point, right? Like I think we are past the point where we can predict metagames with certainty, and that's okay. Like it's more about crafting good sandboxes for people to go and play in. And I was really happy with a lot of the decisions we made throughout High Seas in terms of balance. Some of the decisions we made leading into the season that helped things out a little bit. Things like bringing Florian down a little bit, specifically the Germinate ban. I spoke a lot that I didn't think that was one people saw coming, but it did open a pretty significant strategic weakness in Florian's game, and a lot of those longer games where Florian looked a little soft now to things like, say, Gravy, Verdance. Those are patched up quite well by Germinate. So there are some weaknesses in Florian's game now, and I think that was displayed with like day one versus day two win rates. Florian looked really fine on day one, just a solid hero, as he will always be by virtue of his kit. But you got to day two, and people were prepared, and they were punishing Florians, and Florian had a sub 50% win rate on day two. The two Florians in the top eight, despite playing extremely well, met an early exit. So it was really I was happy. I was happy with the decisions we made and the state of things at US Nats, and I'm excited for what that means for the rest of these national championships coming up.
Yeah, which we have a bunch of them coming up. Now, interesting enough, in that top eight, you had two heroes that, if they won, it was out of CC
Yep.
onto Living Legend. Was there part of you that was like, kind of want this to happen to see what happens with the rest of nationals?
I wanted them to play in the finals. I thought that would have been the coolest story possible. We've been setting up this whole year the idea of Living Legend changes are coming this year. It was so clear from the outset that there was just going to be this rush of heroes leaving the game after a bunch didn't for a very, very long time. I think we only had one LL all of 2024, if I recall correctly. And we knew that was going to change pretty dramatically. And to me, it's exciting. And I hope people embrace that mode of thinking about the LL system and seeing the change, especially now that we've taken some more proactive steps to manage it a little bit. And it doesn't have to be something you fear anymore. It's just part of the natural progression of the game.
Yeah, and I appreciate that kind of change, and you've spoken ad nauseum about the Aurora situation before, but kind of it's Aurora was an interesting thing where she was just really popular and people wanted to play her, and she was really fun to play and could win, and just so happened to really do that speedrun thing. And now we have another hero that seems to be pretty popular, I would say, in Gravy, because Gravy had like a big splash this weekend, coming in second in US Nats, and then I believe winning the Battle Harden. And
Correct.
would you now, like, I'm curious, would you attribute that to his comparative power to the other High Seas heroes, or is this rather the hype for Necromancer because people want to play Necromancer, or and additionally the availability of the Armory deck?
I think it's all the above, as these things often are. I spoke to a lot of people who told me that they were playing Gravy Bones at Nationals, and they told me this when what they knew about Gravy Bones was his hero ability. They didn't know any of the cards. They didn't know anything that was going on. They just made their decision. They were like, yep, I'm playing this hero. And funny enough, I think part of that crew actually included Majin Bey, who did not stick to his word I think it was Cass who reached out to me and told me that him and some others were locked in 100% on Gravy Bones, and ultimately, I think they bailed late, but a lot of people did stick to that, and a lot were rewarded. Like there were really really good Gravy Bones lists here on week one, and very different ones, like a really diverse spread of ways that people were approaching that hero. So it's certainly popularity.
Mm-hmm.
It's certainly that this hero is strong, without a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think there's a pinch of Gravy's pretty hard to play against and asks you to make some concessions the way that ally based classes often do. And I don't think people were really making a lot of those concessions here on week one. I think they will be next week of Nationals. And even with that, though, Gravy found success in some very specific hands. Folks like Jacob Shaker, Brody Spurlock doing really well with it. But if you go and look at win rates, Gravy's wasn't that impressive. I think that's going to trend up over time. I think it is still people learning and figuring out the best deck lists. But it was an interesting story for a debut weekend for a hero, for sure.
Yeah, especially since it was, well, technically two classes that we've never had before. And,
True.
we've seen the splash of a new class into the game before, a la Arachne Huntsman, who did not have quite
not quite the same impact as Gravy Bones.
But, that was, I think,
Gravy Bones might have more LL points already.
Yeah,
Honestly.
I think so. That is kind of a different story, but it is interesting. Now, before we kind of delve a little bit deeper into the depths, I would say, for High Seas, this weekend, as somebody who definitely had a broader expectation, as you said, were there any heroes in this tournament that you were surprised didn't perform better, or surprised they didn't perform worse?
Huh. That is a good question. Thinking who really stands out to me. I think the Draconic Heroes could have had a bigger weekend. Probably Fang
Mm-hmm.
more than anyone else. I think Fang is just getting to a point where his kind of numbers gameplay style is starting to look pretty good, and win rates reflect that. I think he's got a good Gravy Bones matchup, which will serve him well going forward. So I'm still expecting a little bit more from Fang as far as heroes that maybe overperformed. I knew Verdance was good. I don't think it was on anyone's radar as like S tier, and I'm pretty sure it sits there pretty firmly now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, certainly. I mean, and we have a lot of great video evidence of that too for people to look at. I think it's true of any game. I mean, at least of the two card games I played over my life, Magic and Flesh and Blood. First weekend, it's almost like red deck wins, or an aggro deck is going to kind of have a big showing. And you mentioned Fang there, and then we have a finals that is Verdance versus Gravy Bones, which is pretty interesting. So it kind of subverted expectations there. Now, I do want to talk a little bit more about High Seas, but I want to know your fresh faves from this brand new set. As someone who had a hand in it, who was your favorite
Sure.
hero?
Stupid, sexy Scurv just showing up in those booster packs. I don't know if this counts as a valid answer, but I just think the concept of Scurv is cool as hell, and I love what it introduces to the limited format. So thematic, fun to play, is this wild card, and has a lot of good like gameplay influence as well, and outcome influence. So yeah, really big fan of what Scurv adds to the set.
Yeah, and certainly an interesting tool in Limited as a way to kind of create something really cool as a new hero that interacts very well within the Limited gameplay, but also, can make people's imaginations run wild for constructive purposes as well. Great answer. What was your favorite weapon?
Can I say sticky fingers? Is that,
Yeah,
can I just keep it going? I don't know if that's really a weapon. Hammerhead is cool. Like the harpoon approach for Rangers. I think Rangers were just ready to do something different, and I think the harpoon archetype delivers on that.
Definitely. And it's kind of cool. I'd be interested to see more cannons in the future, but obviously you can't comment on that yet. Maybe you can. What was your favorite equipment?
Gold baited hook. I like those kind of, particularly the moments where it is clearly defendable and you still activate anyway. And I like forcing those kind of challenges upon your opponent. Yeah, I'm happy with where that card landed. It was a bit of a struggle to get that one right, but I think we found the sweet spot. Definitely on the more powerful side of things, but the transition from limited to CC for these pirate heroes, they need some gold. Like they have to have some way of getting it, and gold baited hook has been a pretty cool way to go ahead and produce it.
Now, would you say, when you say that it took you a minute to get to that sweet spot, do you think that it was underpowered or overpowered prior, or did it at some point reach both points of that spectrum?
It was all over the place, and it wasn't gold baited hook for a lot of development. Like we just tried a lot of options in this kind of generic pirate gold making position, and happy with the one we landed on. I don't even remember the genesis of where it came from, who proposed it, what its starting form was. Just at some point it was there, and then it was working, and I was very happy with how it turned out.
Oh, it is very cool. And yeah, it is a struggle to get gold that you kind of learn after playing some limited with this set. You're like, oh man, it is
very
drying
different.
up. Now, what's your favorite card you throw into your deck from this set? There's a lot of cool ones.
Got to be Conqueror's Ship, right? Like that just feels pretty badass every time you play it. Extremely powerful. CNC, if you will. It feels like it's going to be the glue for pirates for a very, very long time. Golden Temple is another one that stands out to me as just every time you play that card, you're like, I just got away with something there. That felt really, really good, really clean. Big Golden Temple fan.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've been loving just making a golden harpoon just to discard it. Oh,
absolutely,
that's so buttery. It's just so nice.
I do remember. I definitely came up with the idea and pushed to just say, "Hey, can this just be yellow?" Like I know that's weird. I know it's very strange to say this when it's not pushing actual resources, but I had a conversation with Josh Scott about it, and he was like, yeah, I think we can do this. So we ended up with yellow Goldfin harpoons almost entirely for that interaction.
Yeah. I mean, there's other obviously the yellow matters part does make sense, but man, it is so cool. Now, I'm going to change this question. Usually I'd ask what class and talent would you be? I'm making one of the classes pirate. What pirate blank class would you be if you were sailing the high seas?
So we're speaking more towards my personality and less what I want to do in a game of Flesh and Blood. Is that fair to say?
I mean, you can interpret it however you want. You can say, this is what I would aspire to be, or this could be like, this is realistically what I would be. However you want to answer.
I suspect I would be a pirate bard because a lot of my life is rooted in storytelling via this mode of collectible card games, but also I think you can see the piles of instruments behind me that are just taking over this room. This drum set has crept in now, and we're up to 3 guitars on that wall, and then there's another one. Maybe you just see the headstock over behind my head, and then there's a wall of synthesizers over there. So this room has fully been taken over by musical instruments at this point. To say nothing of my second musical instrument collection that is developing down in Auckland. So I hope I'm a bard. Otherwise, I'm really wasting my money on all this shit.
I mean, it makes sense to me. We need some music on the ship.
Absolutely. Got to have entertainment.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Now, High Seas is released, and it's certainly a lot of fun. And some people will call it their greatest set of all time, for constructive purposes, for limited purposes, for aesthetic purposes. What is your greatest set of all time in Flesh and Blood?
Man, that's so hard for me to say at this point. How about I dodge the question, but I tell you an interesting story that I haven't told anywhere else.
Okay.
And this is why the answer isn't High Seas. I want to share why the answer isn't High Seas.
All right.
For a lot of High Seas, I was the naysayer in the development room. I really was not having a good time with High Seas early on.
Interesting.
And there were a lot of people in the development room who basically instantly were in love with it. And I remember we're probably like a third of the way through the pipeline. And I was just like, I think a lot about this is not working. I think there's a lot of problems here. And I'm concerned. And I was having conversation with James, and I was just like, look, this set is not my favorite right now. I do not like it. I put it quite a bit lower than some of the stuff we've worked on recently. And here's the reasons why. But also, I don't think we have an issue on our hands because there are divergent opinions in the dev room. And there's a lot of people that love it. And I think if we can cover up these issues that I'm having with it, I think we could have something really special on our hands. And a lot of my issues were rooted in snowballs, particularly off Treasure Island, and particularly the way Marlin played. Marlin was so snowbally over on, and the harpoon aspect of Marlin was not in the initial version of the set. There was always two weapons. There was always one that was like this +4 cannon type thing, but there were no harpoons. There was no additional benefit being put onto it. It was just, maybe it gave everything overpower. I don't remember the exact text, but Marlin games could be so snowbally where she would just defend for a few turns, send overpower for 18, take 7 gold off Treasure Island, and then kill you on the next turn, and there wasn't much you could do about it. And her redline builds kind of did the same thing, where they were just going 4 chain links wide, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4. And it was really frustrating for a while. But we honed in on those issues. We worked really hard to correct Marlin's playstyle. The development team did an incredible job, and they put up with me just being kind of a doomer, where they were like happy at points. I was just like, I think this has to be better. I think we need to fix this. And I know I was frustrating people at points, just insisting upon still working on it when people were already having a good time. And I don't know. Like, I don't know if ultimately my insistence upon continuing to refine these things helped to get the set to a better place. Maybe it was already in a fine place, and I was just the outlier opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I do know I really, really like High Seas now. It took me a long time to get to that point. And honestly, I think I had a bit of a hangover for a long time around this set because my initial impressions were so low, and I had to work so hard to try and drive things to change. But I can call out so many important things. You know, Chris Gehring coming up with the harpoon map and really resetting the way arrows worked in the set and resetting the way Marlin worked in the set. And that was a huge change. I think Carol has spoken about this. I don't know where the idea came from. It was probably just one of those things where, like, we talk about what we're struggling with and we go, okay, well, what if we make this small change? And moving the mutinies from rares to common may be the most important thing in my eyes in enabling a break from this snowball style and justifying worlds where, like, you give up a little bit of gold early because you know you're going to steal some back, and more of just these inflection points of I am behind, therefore I get X. So even things like scar for a scar, life for a life, blow for a blow entering the map, all of these really, really small things, I think all built up to make High Seas an unquestionable all-timer. I think it would be unfair for me to say it's my all-time favorite set, given how hard I had to express my early dislike of it.
Yeah.
But it's trending that way for sure. And I feel like by the end of this cycle, I will just have fully been won over and willing to say this is the best limited set of all time.
I would be hard pressed to disagree with you. And, I can understand how hard it would be to be the person saying no, but that's just kind of what is needed when ideas are being thrown around, right? It's important. So,
sometimes it's easy when
Yeah.
we are in agreement that like this is not working and okay, well, let's all get together and figure this out. It's harder when you're like the dissenting voice in the room and insisting for something that other people don't necessarily see as a flaw or don't view the same way. So it was a really interesting development process. I think I just learned a lot about working in a different context, and it's cool to catch up with Carol afterwards. Carol's writing a bunch of articles over for fabtcg.com and just sharing a lot of the dev experience. And I don't know if this one has come out yet, and I don't even know if it actually makes the article, but he and I talked about it a little bit and how he was also initially feeling some of those same frustrations. And Carol's the type that he's not as in your face and loud as I am. He will just kind of like silently bear these frustrations and then write you a nice report about them at the end.
Mm-hmm.
But it was reaffirming to know I wasn't the only person feeling that way. And I don't think it was just Carol either. I think there were moments where other people were experiencing some of the same stuff I was. And I'm just really proud of the team for embracing alternate viewpoints, sticking with the development process, and I think it yielded really cool result.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's clearly so much fun, and people are really loving it. I mean, just like from all points so far, I think there was some worry, like even anecdotally from just seeing people talk about it, like Marlon herself. When they saw that hero ability, people were like, "Oh my god, 3 of a kind, Death Dealer, yada yada yada. Everything's gonna be just insane." And they're like, "Oh, they really want a Death Dealer to LL by this point." And then US Nats happens, and I don't really know the actual win rates of Marlon, but were they
not that high?
Yeah, were they Hammerhead lists? Were they Death Dealer lists? And it all works out. I mean, I think some people would like Marlon to maybe be a little bit better, but that can come down the line there, which is the cool thing, right? And I think
she's a challenging deck to build, as are all of these high seas heroes. And I didn't expect anyone to figure things out week one, and it's impressive how quickly the Gravies really did get their act together. And even saying that, how many different builds were there? Like, there's zero consensus still at this point. So
yeah, it'll be really cool to see how that deck kind of all 3 of them kind of evolve over Nat season and going into Singapore in July. Yeah, July. And it'll be very cool. Now, I want to talk about how you brought Pirates to Flesh and Blood, because since before you were even with LSS, there have been seeds for Pirates in this game, right? And I know certain content creators out there were begging for the Pirates for a long time, and we were wondering, well, was it ever going to happen? And hey, listen, it did. I want to know, when did the real wheels kind of get put in motion? Was it even before you got on board?
Maybe from like a seeding perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember James and I being in one of our design rooms and just scrawling like crazy people on our walls about several sets in a row. It might have been that the genesis for Hunted, High Seas, and the next set were all simultaneous. Honestly, sometimes we're just like, this is very early, like vision design. What are the notes of the set? Usually, what are the classes? What are the talents? What's the broad story? What's the gameplay mechanic? What's the hook that we're going ahead and building around? And the concept for Treasure Island actually spun out of an idea I had for just mech cards, which is weird to say. Like basically a mech gizmo that you put out into the arena and interacted with in some way and yielded benefits to you as you interacted with it. And that very quickly spiraled into Treasure Island. And I remember having the conversation about, what are these heroes doing here? What are the different classes? And coming up with the Sky Pirate Mechanologist in that meeting, talking about the possibility of the ally-based class and what forms that might take on. And it all just came together very quickly. And then I also remember a message I got from James while he was disappearing and working on putting the bones of the set together. And he was just like, what do you think would happen if there was just like a fuck ton of gold in the set? Like just an absurd amount of gold. And I was like, sounds pretty cool, honestly. Like we were so impressed with gold after Heavy Hitters and what it did for that limited format. And for all the good things about High Seas, don't underestimate how much of it is rooted in gold. Gold is a very, very cool limited mechanic. It offers up unpredictability. It offers up power spikes. So when he had that idea, and then I started seeing the type of gold numbers he was talking about, it was instantly clear we were on to something different, something exciting. I didn't know at that point if it would land, but it very clearly did, and came out very freaking cool.
Yeah, it like gold was kind of a hit in Heavy Hitters, and it's obviously a hit here. Is this something that you would consider for future sets where it might not make as much sense in terms of the vibe of the set, the aesthetic?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want it to be a pure shoehorn.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we're in the pits, and here's treasure chest for everyone, and everyone's loaded with gold, and it's got to mean a little bit more than that. Or here's the Mystic set where everyone's rich, and
the economy has to take a hit at some point. Right?
Yeah. It's not super interesting to just do it over and over, but I would be shocked if we don't want to make another set highly rooted in gold. And I will also just say it would be very strange if we never revisited this High Seas pirate vibe again, given how successful it's been. That doesn't mean it's around the corner, but shit, we'd be kind of fools not to pay attention to how much people like this set. So
yeah, no doubt. Now, pirates as a class, I gotta ask, because it could have been a talent. I mean, arguably, like based on what we've seen, but what was the leading factor to say, hey, pirate is going to be a class, and we're going to do dual classes for this set?
Yeah, I don't have a firm answer for that, short of it just kind of felt more like a class. Like talent is a bit of a modifier,
sure, in
most instances, but you can just be a pirate. You can't be a lightning.
True.
Maybe you can be a mystic or a draconic. I don't know exactly what those terms mean, but it just felt right, and it felt more reasonable. And I also think like making a just pirate hero is within range. It feels within range to me. So
it's kind of interesting that we didn't see one. A just pirate, and I had a feeling that there was going to be another hero, and it ended up being one, and it was Scourge.
Come on, people always feel like there's going to be another hero. For every single set we've ever released, there's always been, there's a secret hero.
Well, if we keep betting it, eventually we'll get it right, and this time, it was
even a blind squirrel finds a nut once in a while.
But Scourge ended up being the next class, and there's a listener question later about the thief class, but it is cool to kind of know that, pirate can just be a class, and it'll be interesting to see how that's kind of explored. And the classes that you did with the pirate class, that's more interesting to me because mech, I guess, makes sense, right? You managed to make the Sky Pirate thing work. And to be honest, like, I loved it. I wasn't a huge fan of Bright Lights personally in terms of the aesthetic and like, futuristic stuff, but like, Sky Pirates, that's like really cool. And then, Ranger, yes, you're shooting harpoons and cannons, that all makes sense. But Necromancer, I mean, the undead could show up anywhere. What led you to kind of say, hey, this is where we're doing it?
And people like laughed at me when I said this the first time, but I really was thinking of the cursed crew trope,
Mm-hmm.
and for whatever reason, the Scooby-Doo version of like a pirate ghost ship that just floats around and is out there, and you see it from the shoreline, and there's some creepy person in a castle telling you, oh, that's the haunted ship of blah blah blah. And then the gang goes onto the ship, and there's this spooky pirate ghost chasing everyone around. And I don't, maybe I'm just like over indexing for a single episode of Scooby-Doo. I'm not sure, but I thought that was a pretty real trope in the pirate space, and raising the crew from the dead and the depths of the seas. Yeah, it just made sense. All three of these classes, it was about like, well, what makes sense with pirate? It started with pirate and then backfilled to which classes are going to make the most sense with pirate. And I think like, as far as what else was in the discussion, I remember talking about warrior for a little while, and like that kind of swashbuckling vibe. Illusionist kind of could have filled the same role as Gravy, I think, with the spectral crew. But yeah, those were the points we were working with pretty early on and pretty locked into.
So a lot of classes work with pirate, and a lot of us, when we heard High Seas was announced, Brute Pirate made sense to a lot of people, right? You mentioned how Illusionist would make sense, and a couple of other classes would as well. But then I saw the ships and how powerful they were and how big, their powers were. And right, those were good discard effects, and clearly some like blues that would be pretty good in some brutes. Is that a indicator of us never getting a brute pirate at all?
I don't think so. I mean, look, there's a brute out there that has loads of blue sixes, like hundreds of virtual blue sixes by virtue of the KO ability. So that's more of a Reinar Levia limitation, and I think other brutes can maybe join the pirate class. You'll have to give me a little bit more of a story hook though as to why brutes make sense as pirate crew members, because I didn't see it at first blush. Like I can maybe stretch for it, but it's not one that immediately stands out to me.
I just feel like there's always some kind of just musclehead on a ship, right? You know, part of every pirate movie or show I've watched, everybody has their roles. I'm reading some pirate books right now. There's always just the brawn,
It feels like that's a background character though. Like is that a main character? Is that a hero of the story?
Maybe it could be a first mate. Listen, I mean, we have a lot of room to work with here, Bryan, and if we put our heads together, we could do anything, I swear. So
I believe that. I definitely believe the collective can come up with a good reason why they believe there should be a brute pirate. Look, that's not one that feels completely closed off to me. It just wasn't very high up on our list of considerations while we were making the set.
It makes sense. Now, in terms of challenges, you mentioned that, you were a big presence in the room that was kind of challenging a lot of things in terms of where they were going. What were some of the biggest challenges you think the team faced when designing and balancing High Seas?
Yeah, it was just snowballs. Snowballs were so present in so many of the early states of High Seas, and it wasn't just Treasure Island. It was certainly in the Marlin gameplay as well, and even the other, like obviously ally-based gameplay can have snowballs at times where you just put a couple allies out and it's very hard to catch up, and it was just routinely occurring. And it's such a night and day difference where I now feel those type of snowballs are pretty rare in this format. They just don't present themselves all that often. So, shout outs to the team for fully addressing that challenge and really working that out of the High Seas gameplay.
Awesome. Now, the set's been out now for a couple days, but we've seen a lot of it for a couple weeks now.
It feels a lot longer than that, man.
Death taxes and card gamers criticizing stuff are always going to happen, and it just is a fact of this hobby, right? And the position that you're in. Is there any criticism you've seen for High Seas that you didn't expect, And is there anything that you saw people loving more than you expected?
Nothing has really. I'm speaking solely about
Mm-hmm.
design elements. Like,
Yeah.
I've certainly seen plenty of complaints about non-design related things that I have no say, no control, no input, and no insight into. So I can't really comment on that stuff. On the design side of things, I think people were a little bit more concerned about Scurv's impact on competitive integrity than I thought they would be. Like a lot of people just being like, yeah, this feels kind of outlandish that you just get an edge by opening this hero in a pack. But like, I don't know, you got an edge from opening Miragai and opening Germinate, and I think the edge you get from Scurv is probably less than either of those cards, even if you do it pack one, pick one. And there's a lot of other things that Scurv brings to the table as well. And even if there is that slight edge for Scurv, I would argue that given how hard High Seas is to play, how complex it is, having an out for average player to finally get that 3-0 and take down the greats at their LGS is really, really good. And it's the type of thing that is going to keep people coming back for more and keep people drafting the set. And for maybe the first time after the event ended, I saw people drafting High Seas around the casino lobby for fun. They weren't preparing, they weren't practicing, they just wanted to draft more. And if that doesn't feel like a huge turning point for this game, like it's something I have dreamed about, but has never really come to fruition. We haven't delivered at that high of a level yet. We keep getting better. I don't question that. But I didn't see people after the event ends saying, I haven't had enough. We're headed out to the lobby and we're drafting more. But it absolutely happened with High Seas. So to see us hit that turning point, I won't say entirely unexpected, but certainly very, very pleasant.
Well, it's pretty awesome. You got another bar to kind of jump over.
Yeah, I'm already stressing out, man. I don't know. I don't know if I can live up to this one, but we're gonna try. We're gonna try really hard, and we're gonna learn a lot from High Seas for sure, as we learned from both our successes and failures in the past. We're always learning, and this time we have some other things to take away and unpack. And I hope it stays a story of success throughout its lifespan. Obviously, there's still a lot of time with High Seas out there as the main set. And I hope it stays something that people love throughout that entire run.
Well, I will say that, as someone who loves limited myself, it's always actually really exciting to like see a game like Flesh and Blood, which, is not the most, I guess, like there isn't like a billion archetypes you can jam into like one limited set. Like there's certain limits you can push, but I've always looked forward to every set. Well, how are they going to push it this time? And I think that High Seas just like was another big push, and you're just like, wow, this one feels pretty cool too. Like they keep doing it. So kudos to you and your team. I think it's pretty sweet. Now, before we get to some listener questions on the constructed side of things, which hero do you think has the most from High Seas has the most room to grow in your opinion? Whether it's just by people figuring out how to build a deck or even just some expansion slots in the future?
It's probably still Gravy. I mean, smallest card pool, huge amount of depth in deck building and gameplay. What's sideboarding going to look like? What's it going to look like when people start targeting Gravy? When they show up with a plan to challenge your allies. I think there's a lot of dances still to play out behind Gravy Bones, and I'm really excited to see how they go.
Yeah, no, awesome. Actually, I do want to just bring up Puffin really quickly because I don't even know if I've said the word Puffin once this podcast, but it is cool to see a mech that isn't boosting. I mean, like obviously you can boost with Puffin.
Shout outs to Sam Sutherland, man. That dude wrote an article over on fabtcg.com. I'll also take this moment to plug. I don't know if y'all have noticed. There's some good articles on fabtcg.com now. That is not an accident. That is intentional. That is a focus on putting high quality written content onto a website. If you have followed me for any length of time, you know how passionate I am about card game writing. I am in this position now because of my writing about card games. I think it is an art form. I think it is the way that maybe it's just old people like me, but I love reading about TCGs. I love reading about the evolution of TCGs. I love reading articles about deck building. I'll take it over a YouTube video any day of the week. And I think there are a lot of like-minded people to myself out there. And fabtcg.com is going to work really, really hard to serve those like-minded people and have incredible, I'm not talking good, I'm talking top tier articles up on our website.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is impressive. And listen, if you got a website, people are going to check it out, and you got to have some stuff to look at. And articles are great stuff to look at. So
now we just need to organize it appropriately. But I promise that is in the works as well. Fabtcg.com will be a site that you will click on every single day. That is our vision. And it's not up to that standard right now. But again, like all of this stuff we've talked about, right? We've talked about this progression of limited sets getting better and better. We've talked about coverage getting better and better. We're not satisfied with anything that we're doing. It all needs to get better, and we intend to make it all better. We intend to put in the work to make it better. I wish it was like snap your fingers overnight and everything could just be great, but it is a lot of hard work. It's a lot of getting people in the right place, but we're committed to the journey. And I think, 5 years and a few months in now, I don't think there's any question that we're here for a long time. I think, Flesh and Blood fans are no longer doubting whether their commitment is safe. It's more, how high can we climb?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to figure it out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm here for the long run. So please don't stop. How about that? So we do have listener questions. These come from the Buds Discord. Anybody's free to join. It's in the show notes below. First one for Brian comes from Badgerooney, who asks, what's the best quality of a good game designer that people don't often think about when starting their game development journey? And then also throws in a joke question there of Bolton S tier when?
I'll answer the first one. Second one.
Already is S tier. Come on, guys.
Maybe someday. S tier in our hearts, right? S tier in our hearts. So, great qualities for both designers and developers. It's all communication. It's all varying forms of communication. It's getting your ideas across via your designs and making sure people can understand the themes and stories you're trying to communicate via your designs. It's making sure the people who have to make your stuff fit within the rule system of the game understand your intentions and you communicate that well. And then it's being able to communicate as things change. And it is just all about, frankly, being pleasant to work with, I think, is a huge part of it. And good communication is a real step along that path because we all rely on each other so much in our roles. We are a team through and through. There are very few things these days where you can say with authority, this came from one singular person and they insisted upon it and it was not going to change. You have to build coalitions and you have to get buy-in from everyone on a team. Can some folks push back more than others? Of course. There's always going to be those kind of structures, but you really do need to get everyone to buy into your ideas, to support your ideas, and that all comes from good communication, I think.
Awesome. Next question. Well, actually, this one's not even a question. It's just a note. William from the Table Pit says, I'm personally so excited for the Bravo, Welcome Deck, and Smash Palace. No notes, just can't wait to play stream UPF games when it comes out. And a big thank you. And a big congratulations to Tommy on the Big 200. Love to see it. Keep it up. Thank you, William. Appreciate that.
I'll be at Gen Con playing some Smash Palace in just about a little over a month now. So yeah, very excited to see how folks respond to that multiplayer focused box set.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Next question comes from Mr. Viz, who says, so excited to see skirmish support with Crack Shuffle play. Has LSS done anything to ensure a balanced experience for this, like balancing blue counts and packs, ensuring enough attacks. Totally get if you can't answer this now. Just really hyped for it.
Yeah, that's all part of the experience, making sure that it works out of the pack. And unlike Bright Lights, there's a lot of stuff in Mastery Pack Guardian that is geared specifically towards the crack shuffle play format. I will say that much like everything we do, I'm already looking forward to the next iteration of crack shuffle play, like doing this iteration that nobody's even experienced yet. We learned so much, and you want to carry that forward to the next one. So I'm very, very anxious for people to get this one in their hands and to have fun with it, have a great experience with it, and then see what our leveled up version looks like, which will be the next version that comes down the pipeline.
Very exciting. That is very exciting. Sigma asks, the CYB ban seems correct given your reasoning in the article, but seems okay as a concept. Will we see this kind of life control returning in a hero like Verdance or a class like Cleric where it can be better contained power-wise?
Yeah, I suspect it really, like that type of burst life gain really can't be generic again. That's probably my biggest takeaway. We're going to be a lot more careful with burst life gain on the whole. That is for sure. The appetite just isn't really there for it. I think life gain is important in our game. It has a role to play, but there's probably got to be an upper limit on it, and CYB probably crossed that line. So we'll see what the next iteration is like, but we can't be done with life gain forever. That's not realistic. That's not smart. That would be an overreaction to CYB getting a little out of control. We just have to realize what the problem was with CYB and then look for the next iteration of life gain to sidestep that problem.
Seems fair to me. Capolo asked, who comes up with the funny names for the cards, especially in high seas?
James still names the vast majority of cards. Like I see a few of my names sneak through every now and then on stuff I design, but really, really leans like probably 80+% James, like 15% creative, 4% Chris and I, and then like 1% random dev suggestion that's through. But yeah, really, really leaning towards James.
What about Scuba? Was that you?
I think every single ally was James.
Wow, even after the Scooby-Doo stuff. Holy moly.
Yeah. Well, he had that conversation with me.
Okay.
And he pretended to know what I was talking about. I don't know if he actually did. He might have just been humoring me, but
oh man. Jesse Harper, aka the Orc Knight, comes in and asks, how satisfying was it to see a new hero take the stage and perform well at Nationals on the release weekend?
Yeah, super satisfying. You always want this stuff to hit. Obviously, there were some, I don't really know what to call it. Flashbacks, bad juju from last year's US Nationals at times where you're like, oh boy, is this another new hero coming out that's ready to just run over the metagame? But I don't think this is a Zen situation. I think Gravy looks to be strong and cool and exciting. I hope I'm not eating my words a few months from now, but same thing with Zen. For as unquestionably disastrous as Zen was on release, Zen was a very freaking cool hero towards the end of his life. And I'm sad that's not the hero we got to experience for the entire time. He was legal, is what it is. I like, something like this Living Legend point change is going to allow us to fix a hero that ends up in a position like Zen did. And if we were living in that world when Zen came out, we're probably looking at a Zen that has like 600-ish Living Legend points and now is just thriving and being something cool to offer the game and is still around for folks who bought Part the Mistveil, which is maybe the thing I feel worse about when it comes to Zen. So there were a lot of reasons to make that change to LL, and a huge portion of it is time, like giving ourselves space to have a hero come out in a bad state and find what we need to do to adapt and make it successful. And if anything goes wrong here, we will do the same thing. I don't think that's where we're at, but rest assured that we'll pay close attention. Now we have the time to get these heroes into a safe place and keep them around for an acceptable period of time, no matter how they are coming out the gate.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm not too worried about Gravy like I was about Zen. So, not that my opinion matters anything, but I think we're okay so far. Okay. Ironside comes in and asks, High Seas introduced a surprise class in the form of Thief. What was it like? What was the process in keeping such an interesting and impactful surprise hidden? And follow up, can we expect more Thief in the future? And then they also kind of added in there, personally to me at Locals, contract support, ?
It was a pain in the ass. Just a massive pain. We had to take so many things out of preview season, anything that referenced Thief, anything that hinted at it. We had to make sure all of this stuff was kept so carefully under wraps. And we were like, I even went as far as hiding it from Hayden and Scott, who were doing world premiere. Not because I didn't trust them, just because I wanted them to have the experience of, oh my God, what's happening right now? And they did, genuinely. And it was really cool for them to be able to share that with the stream. So it just, time and time again, made us be super careful, account for things. It shaped like what promos were going to be made. It was just everywhere. As far as, will there be more Thieves? We make something once, like it could certainly be done again. I don't know how quick it'll be, but it exists now. So yeah, could be more Thieves. As far as contract support, someday, I always try. I really do. It's so funny. I get all the flack for being like assassin guy and the one who wants all the assassins to be broken. I just want contract cards for Arachne. Like that's what I am out there pushing for every set. It's not, we should have a 0-cost attack reaction that pluses for 9 and takes every single card that you like out of your collection and rips it in half. That's not what I'm shooting for. I'm like, how about a good contract attack? And thus far unsuccessful, but I'm going to keep fighting. I'm going to do whatever I can to get those contracts in there.
You're fighting the good fight, Brian. You're fighting the good fight.
I try.
I had an anonymous question, just briefly from somebody I work with, that they were asking a Spell Void ally for Gravy Bones when?
That's a cool idea.
Cool.
I like that.
All right.
Yeah.
And then Greg, aka Darth Prentice, asks, what's your favorite book you've read this year?
I have very little time to do reading. I don't get to read as much as I would like. I have been painstakingly slowly making my way through The Expanse. I've never seen the television show. I don't really watch television that isn't animated. But I heard good things about the TV show. I've really liked the book series so far. Man, that might be the only book I've actually made it through over the course of this year, which is sad. I used to be a voracious reader, and I'm out of time. There's just no more time in the day for my hobbies, and it's quite sad. But I do recommend the Expanse series. It's very, very cool sci-fi, if that's your thing, and I am digging it.
Awesome. Well, this is a lot of fun, Brian, yet again. I really appreciate you coming on, giving us your time. It's always a pleasure. Can you please plug all of your things and where people can find you? And thank you again.
You can find Flesh and Blood at LGSs around the world. Don't bother following me on any social media site because I hate them and I don't use them very often anymore, which I'm really happy with. And keep playing Flesh and Blood. Come to tournaments. I'll be at tournaments. Although this, I swear, I will put it out there on this video right now. I'm only going to do Pro Tours in 2026. I'm not going to world premieres. I'm not going to national. I can't do it anymore. I am so exhausted. I went from Taipei back to Auckland, from Auckland to Las Vegas, from Las Vegas now to New York. I leave for Singapore in like 4.5 weeks or something like that. Then I'll fly to Gen Con. Then I'm going to fly back down to Auckland for the calling down there. Then I'm going to fly back to the US. I can't do this shit anymore. I have angry bones, jittery bones, burly bones. I have all the bones. I can't keep flying all the time. So 2026, Pro Tours only. But for the time being, you can probably find me at a bunch of tournaments. I think I'll be at World Premiere in Montreal. So if you want to catch me up there, that might be a spot. If you're here in North America, I will be in Singapore. I will be in Auckland. I will be at Gen Con.
Philly?
Just come say hi. Come say, yeah, Philly. That counts as a Pro Tour.
Yeah.
Worlds and Pro Tours are the things that I will be at. So I will be in Philly as well.
Awesome. Well, yeah, hopefully less traveling next year, but we'll take you while we can. You all can find me on mostly Blue Sky these days at freshbudspod. Check out the YouTube, give the old like, comment, subscribe. Discord's in the show notes as well. Fresh Juice, an indie game podcast I do with my cousin. And finally, Bryan, always like to end every show, as you know, talking a little bit about food. Hit me with some food that you've enjoyed recently, that you're looking forward to, anything.
Food in Vegas was not very good. It's on me, though, because I get to the Westgate and I say to myself, do not leave this building. Like, just not leaving, not getting sucked into it. This is it. This is where I live for the next few days. Westgate's food is not great. It's passable. I am now back in New York, and the more time I spend in Auckland, the more I dislike American food. It just leaves me feeling very sick all the time. It's all very sweet and rich, and I miss my Auckland food. I'll give a shout out to Tian Fu Dumplings, which recently closed in Auckland, and they said they had their lease run out. Me and a bunch of my fellow devs would go to Tian Fu at least once a week. I would probably order it at my house. They had the best spicy dumplings I've ever had in my life. Vegetarian dumplings in a vegan broth. They were awesome. They were incredible. I hope they come back. Shout outs to Tian Fu in Auckland. Please don't stay away forever.
Please come back, Tian Fu. That sounds really good. And I want some dumplings now. And unfortunately, we don't have time for Charmer, but it's been a great episode. Thank you, Bryan. Thank you for 200, everybody. Let's do 200 more, maybe? We'll see. Everybody stay fresh.